Good evening and welcome to the Beaver Sports Show. I'm Jake McGrady.
I'm Jenna Lane.
And I'm Josh Warden. Thank you for joining us on our last episode of the term. Tonight we're going to cover men's basketball, wrestling, and we'll finish out with OSU's two final football games against Washington and Oregon.
Men's basketball had some intense games the past couple of weeks. They had a great win against the Cougars in the Nike N7 game with a win of 101-81 with over 5,000 fans in attendance.
There were a lot of great plays with some impressive turnouts during the game. Devon Collier scored 20 points with 7 assists and 2 blocks. This was his second game in a row putting up 20-plus points and the 9th time in his career. Angus Brandt finished with 19 points and 7 rebounds, and Roberto Nelson finished with 17 points and 5 rebounds.
Langston Morse Walker hit a three-pointer just seconds before the final buzzer, capping off Oregon State's triple-digit win for the 32nd time in school history. Unfortunately, this was not the case for their next game against DePaul in Chicago with a loss of 93-81.
But not all was lost. Although the game did end in a loss, OSU still did a great job throughout the match. Roberto Nelson scored 19 points and became the 20th player in Oregon State history to reach the 1,200-point mark.
The Beavers wrestling team took on the Boise State Broncos on November 24th and got off to a solid start at the 133-pound level, with sophomore Drew Van Anroy defeating Boise State's Ty Stevenson by a 10-0 major decision.
Redshirt freshman Joy Delgado at 141 beat Boise's Travis Himmelman with a 20-2 major decision and giving the Beavers overall an 8-0 lead. Boise State began to come back, tallying their first 3 points at 149 as the Broncos' Chris Castillo defeated senior Scott Sakaguchi by a 3-2 decision.
Beaver senior R.J. Pena at 157 helped put the Bees back on track, but the Broncos would respond with 7 straight points at 174 and 184. At 197, junior Taylor Meeks collected 1-0 decision over Boise State's Cody Dixon and gave the Bees an 18-10 lead, but the Bees would end up losing with a final score of 19-18.
The wrestling team also took on the number 3 Minnesota Gophers November 30th. R.J. Pena and redshirt junior Alex Elder would collect 12 points for the Beavers, both forcing pins over their opponents. However, the team would end up losing in the final bout to Minnesota's number 1, Tony Nelson, who recorded a 6-0 decision over Oregon State's freshman, Amar Vigardesi, giving the Gophers a 28-12 victory.
On November 27th, the Oregon State women's volleyball team took on Washington at Alaska Airlines Arena.
The Beavers dropped a 4-set match with scores of 17-25, 11-25, 26-24, and 10-25. Oregon State won the 3rd set after coming back from an early deficit of 12-9. Though a great performance in the 3rd set, the Beavers could not sustain in the 4th.
Kelsey Zimmerman pitched in with 7 kills, and Taylor Woods, who was named to the Pac-12's All-Academic First Team on Wednesday, assisted on 35 of the team's total 40 kills.
A couple days later, on the 29th, the ladies closed out their 2013 season with a 4-set loss to Oregon at Matt Knight Arena. The match was the second of the year in the Civil War, but the set scores ended at 13-25, 19-25, 25-21, and 15-25.
Lila Turner's 11 kills paced the Beavers, who finished with 43 overall, and OSU hit .206 on the night. The Beavers won the 3rd set again with a strength of a .519 hitting percentage, posting a total of 16 kills and only 2 errors.
The match marked the end of the career for the Beavers senior Becky Defoe, finishing her career with 2,029 digs. That places her 9th all-time in Pac-12 history.
On November 23rd, the Beavs played Washington for their last home game at Reser Stadium, and our field reporters Jenna Lade, James Chavez, and Katie Beasley went out to capture the Seniors' final performance in front of our home crowd.
On November 23rd, the Beavers hosted their last home game versus the Washington Huskies. With 42,779 fans in the stands on a brisk 35-degree night, it was thought to be a great matchup. The Beavers were looking to come back from the 2017 loss at CenturyLink Stadium last year, which gave the Beavs their first loss of the 2012 season. The circumstances were a bit different, though, as the Beavers were attempting to end their 3-game losing streak. In the first quarter, Sean Mannion connected with Storm Woods for a 46-yard pass. This was OSU's 12th 40-plus yard game this season. Brandon Cooks has 9, Storm Woods now has 2, and Micah Hatfield with 1. The Beavers found it difficult stopping the junior running back Bishop Sankey, who rushed for 179 yards and tallied for 3 touchdowns on the night. He scored twice, which led the Huskies to a 27-0 lead at halftime. His final score came 6 minutes into the third quarter. Also, UW running backs Deontay Cooper and Dwayne Washington combined to rush for 308 yards and 4 touchdowns. Along with others, the Washington Huskies finished with 530 yards of rushing on 58 attempts. On the defensive side for UW, linebacker Shaq Thompson earned a pick and took it in for an 80-yard touchdown return. Marcus Peter, who picked off Sean Mannion's final pass against UW last season, had 2 this night, giving Mannion 3. Thompson's return put the Huskies up 48-0 going into the final quarter. The Huskies would end with 69 points and were the most for UW in 69 years, where they won 71-0. The Huskies outgained the Beavers 692 yards to 414 in total offense. The effective running game left it very easy for backup quarterback Siler Miles to step in for Keith Price. He threw for 162 yards and 1 touchdown to Kevin Smith, who led the team with 73 yards receiving for the night. The Beavers went down early, but in the fourth quarter, quarterback Sean Mannion hooked up with Brandon Cooks at the 14:40 mark. That was the duo's 15th combination on the season and 22nd together overall. Cooks collected 117 yards on the day, making him the Beavers' all-time leader for receiving yards in a single season with 1,560. He surpassed Beaver alum Mike Haas. Cooks also passed Marcus Wheaton's career record with 3,102 yards, moving him into the 3rd spot all-time. His 110 receptions on the season put him at 3rd place in the Pac-12 record books behind Marquise Lee with 118 in 2012 and Robert Woods with 111 in 2011. They both played for USC. Sean Mannion's 229 yards pushed him past Jonathan Smith's career passing yards, moving him into 2nd with 9,863 and 1,386 yards behind quarterback Derek Anderson, who has 11,249. Redshirt freshman running back Chris Brown would score his first touchdown on a 3-yard rush in the fourth quarter and rush for a career-high 73 yards. Senior wide receiver Micah Hatfield caught a touchdown from quarterback Cody Vaz with 2 minutes and 25 seconds left in the game. Head coach Mike Riley said after the game, quote, "It's really, really disappointing. Right from the opening kickoff, the big play on the opening kickoff to every phase in the game. There's no getting around it. We just totally failed all the parts. We're all responsible," end quote. The Beavers would lose the game 69-27. That put the Beavers at 6-5 going into the Civil War. And to recap, I'll send it back to you guys.
You know, that was a really rough game that night. The vibe was just off, but it was a cold night. I know things were a little weird. How do you guys feel about the game?
Josh?
Yeah, it got down to like 28 degrees by the end of it. It was a cold one. It wasn't really something I expected. I mean, I know the Washington football team is really talented, but you know, Oregon State just didn't have the energy. Came out, I don't know. It offered an interesting intro to the Civil War, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. The energy was off. You know, Bishop Sankey and pretty much all of Washington's rushing game was on point that whole game. You know, the way we got down at first, I think it just sort of knocked us off course. It was freezing. But, you know, if you want to look at some positives of it, it was senior night, so the families were there.
Right.
James and Jaquiz got honored. You know, we had some shining moments from the second strings, third strings coming in towards the fourth quarter, so I think it's sort of a game we just had to look past it. Obviously, we know the outcome of the next week, but, yeah, it was a chip on the shoulder, I believe.
It was. Now, fast forward to next Friday, Civil War football, which is an annual affair, but the 2013 version had a little bit of a different atmosphere than in years past. The Ducks had lost 2 of 3 games coming into rivalry week, and the Beavers had lost 5 straight. Still, the Civil War held major bowl implications and major bragging rights as well. OSU sported the all-orange uniforms in the second Friday Civil War in history, but it didn't start well for the Beavers. After OSU's opening drive ended with an interception, U of O's Thomas Tyner ripped off a 40-yard run up the middle. The Ducks would go up 14-0 in the first quarter, including a 5-yard touchdown by DeAnthony Thomas. The Beavers finally found some momentum when Braylon Addison fumbled a punt at his own 23-yard line, which Ryan Murphy scooped up in the air to give the Beavers great field position. OSU would capitalize with a Storm Woods rushing touchdown from 2 yards out. After a U of O field goal, Teron Ward fueled another scoring drive with this 31-yard run. Trevor Romaine converted on a short field goal to make the score 17-10 in favor of Oregon. Then the defense stepped up as Steven Nelson picked off Marcus Mariota to continue the Beavers' run. That drive ended in a fumble near the goal line, but on the Ducks' next drive, Mariota again dropped back to pass and was picked off, this time by Rashad Reynolds, who weaved his way down the field to return the interception inside the 30-yard line. Mariota only had 2 interceptions on the season before the Civil War, and the Beavers added 2 picks in the second quarter alone. This time the Beavers would not be denied. Sean Mannion dropped back and found Teron Ward on a little flare pass down inside the 1-yard line. He does his best to try to convince the referees that it got in. They mark him down inside the 1, but to show the referees up, he gets in on the very next play for 6 more points. After a little celebration with Tyler Anderson, the Beavers head to the locker room at halftime, tied with the number 12 team in the nation. The Beavers start out the second half with a 47-yard field goal by Trevor Romaine for a 3-point lead. It would be the first of 6 lead changes in the second half. Oregon struck back on a 28-yard touchdown pass to Josh Huff to regain the lead, but Teron Ward and the Beavers were not done. A 25-yard scamper by Ward got the Beavers rolling, followed by a 33-yard catch and run for Kellen Clute. OSU would fail on a 4th down conversion, but then force a punt to regain possession. Another Romaine field goal put the Beavers down by 1, and again, Teron Ward finds space down inside the 5-yard line. Sean Mannion rolls to his right and finds Tyler Anderson for 6 points. It's now 29-23 OSU, no 2-point conversion on that one. Another Josh Huff touchdown puts Oregon up by 1, but Victor Bolden responds with a nice return just shy of the 40-yard line. Sean Mannion drops back and steps up, finds Caleb Smith just shy of the 50-yard line. OSU is down by 1, less than 2 minutes remaining. True freshman Victor Bolden takes the fly sweep a la James Rogers in the 2008 Civil War. He takes it to the house and the Beavers are up by 5. OSU needs 1 more stop to take their first Civil War victory in 6 years. Mariota and the Ducks, however, proved to be too much as Josh Huff hauls in his 3rd touchdown reception of the second half, and Oregon escapes with a 36-35 victory in Autzen Stadium.
So what do you guys take out after this game, after this 1-point loss?
I think compared to the Washington game, where OSU fans were just hoping it would get over, at least Beaver fans were hoping this one wouldn't end. I mean, it was a huge improvement over the Washington game.
I think everyone was super proud of the Beavers. I think they did a tremendous job. Like, I don't think anyone was expecting that. I think they did great. Everyone's super proud.
Yeah, I agree. You know, it wasn't something that people expected. You know, going into Autzen, that place is always electrifying. You know, over the past 6 years, we haven't always had the best track record when we're playing in Autzen. But, you know, from right off the bat, you know, after we went down 0-14, we came in so much heart, so much drive, and I honestly think, you know, we played the better game that day. A loss is a loss, but still a 1-point loss is something I think is a chip on the shoulder and gives a little fire next season. I don't know.
Yeah, it gets us pumped for next season is what I say.
And I think losing just by 1 point to one of the best teams in the country helps a lot with bowl implications. I mean, if you're a bowl executive and a 1-point loss, it's a lot better last game in the regular season to look on. It could help the Beavers get into a bowl game as opposed to the 42-point loss to the Huskies.
Yeah,
yep.
Definitely. So that's all the time we have for tonight. Thanks for joining us on our last show of the term. Until next time, I'm Jake McGrady.
I'm Josh Warden.
And I'm Jenna Lade. Have a great night.